live in a very complex world where everything is so complicated and technical, and where technology seems to change almost daily. You almost don't want to buy an iPad, because as soon as you buy it, they're going to come out with a new iPad or something else that's even better. I can remember when computers first came out. I bought my first computer for $3,200. And let me just tell you, that was such a sacrifice. It had a 20 meg hard drive in it. It was like, oh my gosh, I'll never need more hard drive space than that. Well, today I have programs that actually have gigabytes worth of information on it. But it seems like as soon as you buy something, it's already obsolete. There's something that's better. And so it seems like if we're going to keep up with the changes in technology, we've got to be constantly learning, almost to the point where it's overwhelming. There's just too much to learn. So what more people are starting to want is simplicity. Seriously. What I hear people saying is, try to make it as simple for me as you can. In other words, give me the Reader's Digest version. And if it's possible, they want it boiled down to just one thing. That's what they want. They want simple answers to complex problems. That's why you're hearing people ask questions like this. What's the one thing I need to do to keep my kids off drugs? What's the one thing I need to do to get out of debt? What's the one thing I need to do to protect my assets? And it really doesn't matter what the subject is, they still want to boil down to one thing, even when it comes to marriage. You see, the whole reason that I'm teaching this series is because I've had several people come up to me over the last year or two, and they've asked the very same question. They want to know, what's the one thing I can do to improve my marriage more than anything else? And at first, I just kind of laughed at them, because marriage is complex. And you want me to boil marriage down to just one thing? People, we're talking about something that involves a woman. And you want me to boil it down to one thing? But then I started thinking about it. And I thought to myself, I can do that. I can give them one thing that will improve their marriage more than anything else. And that's why I'm teaching this series. Now, last week I gave you the one thing. I gave you the one thing that will improve your marriage more than anything else. And what was it? Do you remember? Empathy. You see, empathy is the key to a healthy relationship with your spouse. It's the key to effective communication. It's the key to developing true intimacy. And it's the key to helping you resolve your conflicts. It's the one thing that you can do to improve your marriage more than anything else. But first, you have to know how to do it. You have to know how to empathize with your spouse. So last week, I showed you how to do it. I broke the process down into 3 easy steps. Step number 1, set aside your own agenda. In other words, set aside what you want. Step number 2, step into your spouse's shoes. Why? So you can see the situation from their perspective. And last but not least, step number 3, express sincere care and concern about how they feel and the way they think and why they think that way. Now, on paper, it looks very simple, right? Yeah, it looks simple. But what about real life? Is it that simple in real life? Well, believe it or not, it is. Empathizing with your spouse really isn't that difficult, not if you have the right heart and the right attitude. Well, Pastor, it sounds like it's difficult. That's because you don't have the right heart and the right attitude. You see, the only thing difficult about this process is the first step, which is setting aside our own agenda, setting aside what we want. That's the most difficult part of the whole process, because as I said last week, we're all a little bit egocentric. And that's why taking the first step is the most difficult part of the process. People, it's all about us, right? We see everything from our perspective, from what we want. And when someone tells us that we need to set aside what we want, we buck at that. It's human nature to be egocentric. So here's what I want to do this morning. I'm going to show you the very same video clip that I showed you last week, with one exception. This time I'm going to explain what they should have done in that situation and why. So let's look at that video clip again. Run it if you don't mind.
We're going.
It's good.
Oh, wow, you got a lot happening.
I know. Very exciting.
I am starving.
Oh, careful. That's very hot.
Well,
Yep. Hey, you should get ready, okay?
you look great.
Thank you.
Got a lot of nice stuff. Got a pizza.
All kinds of stuff.
Terrific.
And so you decide what to, get everything.
Courts is the right-hander. Will Holman,
Yeah. Oh, come on. Really?
You got 3 lemons.
What my baby wants, my baby gets. You know that.
No, but I wanted 12. Baby wanted 12.
Why would you want 12 lemons?
Because I'm making a 12 lemon centerpiece.
So no one's actually even eating them? They're show lemons?
Yeah, they're just show lemons. Shown in the center of the table. Glad you find that amusing, but I cannot fill a vase with only 3 lemons.
Well, can't you just use, like, maybe a drinking glass?
I could use a
Well, you
drinking...
can have a smaller version of a centerpiece.
I'm not gonna use a drinking glass for our centerpiece.
You know what? I got an idea. Why don't we go ahead and scratch the centerpiece idea altogether? Because the chicken that burnt my mouth could maybe use a little bit of lemon on top of it. Guess what? Now we made a better meal versus something visually nice to look at.
What are you doing? What's happening here? What are you doing? What are you doing?
I had such a long day on the bus. I need a little bit of downtime. My feet are killing me.
Come on, my feet are killing me too. I worked all day. Went to the market. I cleaned this entire condo, and then I've been cooking for the last 3 hours. Come on, help set the table.
Sweetheart,
What?
you're doing such a great job already. Why don't you want to finish it yourself and have that personal power, that accomplishment?
Set the table.
Listen to me. Do you think that when Michelangelo, right, was painting the 16th chapel, that he said, hey guys, you know, I did pretty good on the first 15 chapels, but why don't you help me design this one? And maybe you could help me, give me a brush, and you guys can grab brushes and we can all make a great chapel. No, he didn't. And you want to know what the results were? A masterpiece.
Okay. It's the Sistine Chapel, not the 16th. And I bet when Michelangelo asked for 12 brushes, they didn't bring him 3.
Yeah, okay. All the talking is really starting to drain me, and now I'm gonna have to watch the highlights later to see what I missed here.
Honey, look, Gary, Gary,
Downtown's
please just take a
important.
shower,
Downtown's important.
okay? Because this is what I don't want to have happen. I don't want the doorbell to ring, I'm then forced to answer the door, entertain people, and I'm still cooking dinner.
Yeah.
Okay?
You're absolutely right. Let's do that. The second that this inning's over,
Gary.
there's one out already.
They're gonna be here in 20 minutes.
Baby, have you ever seen a shower of mine take more than 4 minutes?
Yes, I have. Come on. Oh, wait. That they're here. Okay, table's not set, dinner's not ready. Would you please just let my parents in?
I gotta jump the shower.
What?
I gotta do it.
Gary! Gary!
As you can see, they each had their own agenda. And her agenda was to have everything perfect for their dinner party, which required his help because she couldn't do it all by herself in the limited amount of time that she had. So she wanted him to help her get things ready. His agenda was to sit back and relax and just kind of unwind before the dinner party, which meant that his agenda and her agenda clashed, which caused a major fight later on in the evening. But here's what's funny. They both thought that they were right and the other was wrong, when the truth is no one was right or wrong. They just had different agendas that clashed with each other's. Now, last week when I said this, I ticked every woman off in the sanctuary, right? Yes, admit it. How many of you probably didn't even listen to me for 5 minutes after I made that comment? I mean, you were so irritated because all of you women were thinking, he was wrong. He should have helped her. Admit it, how many of you women thought that way? And probably got a little bit irritated at me for even making that comment. Well, I just want you to understand something. I completely agree with you. You just weren't listening very well. You see, I didn't say that he wasn't wrong. I said that his agenda wasn't wrong. Let me say it again. I didn't say that he wasn't wrong. I said that his agenda wasn't wrong. Listen to me. There is nothing wrong with wanting to come home from work, to sit down, to relax, and to unwind for 20 to 30 minutes. Who doesn't want to do that? So there was nothing wrong with what he wanted to do. But he was wrong not to help her. Now, does anyone know why he was wrong not to help her? He was wrong because he violated the law of Christ principle. How many of you know what the law of Christ principle is? Well, turn with me, if you would, to the book of Galatians, chapter 6, verse number 2, and let me show you what the law of Christ principle is. Bear one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ. In other words, if someone needs your help and they ask for your help, you're supposed to help them. That's the law of Christ principle. Now, why is it referred to as the law of Christ principle? Because in Matthew chapter 7, verse number 12, Jesus said, what you want others to do to you, you need to do for them. Now, let's apply this to marriage. When you need help, you want your spouse to help you, right? How many of you say, well, when I need help, I don't ever ask my spouse to help me? No, we automatically do that. When we need help, we want our spouse to help us. So we're supposed to do unto them what we want them to do for us. People, that's the law of Christ. So why was the guy in the video wrong? Because he violated the law of Christ's principle. But it doesn't mean that his agenda was wrong. Wanting to sit down after work to relax and to unwind is not wrong. But not setting that aside and helping her when she needed help and asked for help was wrong. Is everyone with me? You need to understand the difference between our agenda and our actions. So what should he have done? Well, he should have helped her that evening and then later on. And we're talking a week or two, not that night or the next morning. He should have sat down with her and talked about the situation and his agenda. Because if she doesn't know that after work, he just likes to sit out on the couch to relax, to unwind for at least 20 or 30 minutes. If she doesn't know that, she's going to keep planning dinner parties instead of on the weekend. She's going to plan them for the weekday. And it's not going to be her fault that she keeps planning those dinner parties on the weekday instead of the weekends. It's not her fault because he hasn't told her how he feels, what he wants, and why he wants those things. So at some point, he's going to have to share with her his feelings, the way he thinks, and why he thinks that way. Now, let me tell you what Lisa and I do when we have agendas that clash. Because believe it or not, every once in a while, we have what you would probably call disagreements, but in our house, it's a fight. Now, my girls have never seen us raise our voice. We don't yell. We don't throw things. We don't slam doors. We don't say little snippy things to each other. It's just a little bit cool in our house when we're having a fight and we're discussing something, right? So let me show you what we do when our agendas clash. A week or two after the situation, I'll ask her, what did you think about the dinner party? Or whatever it was where we had different agendas and they clashed. Now, whenever I say, what did you think? People, that's code for you and I need to talk because we have different agendas. What we want are two different things. Now, it's not code for you and I need to talk because what we want are two different things. No. It's code for, hey, we need to sit down and discuss a few things because what you want and what I want are two different things. So usually when I say, what did you think about the dinner party 2 weeks ago? She'll say something like this, well, I had a good time. What about you? And I'll respond, well, I had a good time too, but. And then I get a chance to explain my agenda. I get a chance to explain what I like and what I don't like. I get a chance to explain what I want in situations like that and why I want those things. And people, that's healthy for a marriage. Because that allows Lisa to step into my shoes and to see things from my perspective. She gets to learn how I feel and the way I think, but more importantly, why I think that way. And during the conversation, she gets to share her agenda with me. She gets a chance to explain what she likes and what she doesn't like. She gets a chance to explain what she wants in those type of situations and why she wants those things, which allows me to see things from her perspective. So I get to learn how Lisa feels and the way she thinks and why she thinks that way. Now, I want you to notice the 3 benefits of doing this. Number 1, our communication is more effective because we're not attacking each other, we're sharing with each other. You see, the majority of people don't know how to communicate with each other, and the reason they don't is because they just want to prove their point. I want my spouse to see that what I want is right and what they want is wrong. And so it turns into an argument because it started out as a debate. It shouldn't have started out as a debate. Remember, you have to go into any type of discussion with the insight of knowing that not all agendas are wrong. If they want something differently from you, it doesn't mean they're wrong. So we're going in to learn what my spouse wants, why she wants that, how she feels, why she feels that way, the way she thinks, why she thinks that way. Remember, empathy is simply a tool to help us communicate more effectively with our spouse, and we're using it as a tool to do that. Now, for this tool to work, we can't be defensive, which means that I can't say things that makes my spouse defensive. I'm not attacking, I'm sharing. And people, you have to be objective. You have to be willing to see things from your spouse's perspective. Remember, most agendas aren't wrong, they're just different. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. Most of us are not good empathizers. Next week, I'm going to show you a chart that has 4 quadrants in it. And only one quadrant is where you should be. One quadrant means that you're an empathizer, but the other 3 means you're in the wrong quadrant. You're either egocentric, you're a sympathizer, or you're an analyzer. And I'll be honest with you, the majority of us fall into the 4th quadrant. We're analyzers. And for men, that means we're fixers. When we listen to our spouse, what we want to do is fix the problem. And women get upset with us because we're not empathizing, we're trying to fix their problem. Women, am I right? And women, most of you are analyzers too, but you use it in a different way. You're a manipulator. Yes. And next week you need to be here because I'm going to show you this chart that will really give you insight to yourself and to your spouse. And if you are good at empathizing with your spouse, you'll know why you are. And if you're not, you'll know why you're not and what you need to do to improve. Now, the second benefit of doing what I'm talking about is that we're developing greater intimacy in our marriage. And why does it develop greater intimacy? Because I'm discovering how my wife feels about certain things and why she feels that way. I'm discovering how my wife thinks and why she thinks that way. I'm learning things about her that no one else knows. Many times, even my spouse's parents don't know those things. And I know this is true for me. I might feel a certain way, and I don't even know I feel that way until we get to talking about it. And I'll think, I didn't even know I felt that way, but I do. It's subconscious, but I'm doing that. So I'm learning things about Lisa that I didn't know. And by sharing those things with me, she's allowing me to step into her shoes and to see things from her perspective. And people, that's true intimacy. I've told you before, when we talk about intimacy, the best way to remember what intimacy means is to say it like this: into me, see. That's what intimacy is. Into me, see. Now remember, empathy is a tool to help us develop this great intimacy in our marriage, and we're using it as a tool to do that. I want to know, and that should be your goal too. I want to know what my spouse feels and why she feels that way, the way she thinks and why she thinks that way. Now I know, men, many of you are saying, well, the way she feels is wrong. Let me just tell you something. Feelings are like agendas. The majority of the time, there are no wrong feelings. They just feel that way. And whether or not she should feel that way or not is irrelevant. She feels that way, and let's find out why. The way she thinks, let's find out why she thinks that way. And that's why empathy can be used as a tool to develop greater intimacy in our marriage. And last but not least, number 3, we're resolving conflicts easier and quicker. You see, the more I know about Lisa and how she feels and the way she thinks and why she thinks that way, the more I'm going to be able to please her. I'm going to know what makes her happy, and I'm also going to know what irritates her. Plus, she's also going to know that at least I'm trying to please her and I'm not purposely trying to irritate her. You see, sometimes women, you think that your husband is purposely trying to irritate you. And maybe he is, maybe he's not. But it might be that he really doesn't understand why you feel that way. He doesn't know how to see it from your perspective because you've never discussed it or shared it with him. And as a result of that, he's irritating you. And it's the same way with me. The more that Lisa knows how I feel and the way I think and why I think that way, she's going to know what makes me happy and what irritates me. Plus, I'm going to know she's at least trying to make me happy, and she's not purposely trying to irritate me. I'm going to say this over and over again until you get it. Empathy is a tool to help you communicate more effectively, to develop greater intimacy, and to help you resolve your conflicts quicker and easier. And we're supposed to use empathy as a tool. That's what the Bible teaches. Now, I'm going to give you a real example where my agenda and Lisa's agenda clash and how we've dealt with it. You're going to get some insight into my house. Now, I would have liked to have used one of you as an example, but that offends people for some reason. So I decided that I'm going to give you a little bit of insight into me, and it's not pretty. But the Bible says to confess our faults one to another so that you might pray for me. And as I give you a little insight into our agendas and how they have clashed with each other, you'll know to pray for Lisa too for putting up with me, all right? So let me do that. My wife and kids love Christmas and all the decorations that go along with it. I love Christmas too, but I'll be honest with you. I hate the decorations part. And it's not that I have to do any of the decorating, but I have to bring all of the decorating items down from the attic. Now, you need to understand something. That in and of itself takes about an hour and a half to 2 hours, even with Lisa helping me. Because, you know, we only have a 2-car garage. And so all of the tubs that we put our Christmas things in, and I'm telling you, how many tubs do we have, 25 or 30? They're up in the attic, which means I have to climb up in the attic, and we've got a little system. I then have to move them over to the place where you can come down the attic. I then have to get down halfway, reach up and grab them, and some of them are pretty heavy. And then I have to take them past my big belly and hand them down. And then we use a dolly because we've got this system. We'll get everything down, we put it all in the garage, and then I put it on the dolly, and I start moving it in. And it takes minimum 2 hours with Lisa helping me. And then I have to put the tree up. Now, you need to understand, I have a pretty big living room. I purposely built the living room in such a way that we could have lots of family members over, we could have a lot of people over, and so my living room is 28 by 28. And it has a cathedral ceiling. And the top of that cathedral ceiling is 15 feet 6 inches. So an 8-foot Christmas tree is just kind of swallowed up. So my wife had this great idea when we built this house 10 years ago that we needed a 12-foot tree. I don't know if you've ever tried to put up a 12-foot tree that your wife thinks is pretty because it's full. But I'm here to tell you, putting the tree up takes 4 hours. It's so heavy. Has 5 different parts to it besides the tip, and of course the lights are there. So by the time I put everything up, and I've got to use an 8-foot ladder for that 4th and 5th tier, and so now I'm reaching out, I can't ruin the tree, I'm leaning out, and I'm praying to God that I'm not going to throw anything out in my back as I try to put it in. And then when everything is up, I've got to fluff the branches. Because to put it back in the boxes, you had to come in and crimp them together. And then we plug it in to make sure that all the lights are working, and they never work. Which means that it's my job to go through it to make sure that there's nothing wrong. Maybe a fuse needs to be put in, maybe there's a new light bulb. And if I can't get them to work, then I also have to go up into the attic one more time, and I have to get the string of lights, and I have to put it in so you can't tell that our lights aren't working in any parts of the tree. Now, are we finished yet? No. We've got to actually shim the base. Because I guarantee you all trees are made in China, and China does not know what quality control is. And so when you're putting that first piece into that base, it's not going up perpendicular to the floor. So I always have to shim the tree. So Lisa has to stand back and say, no, it needs to go a little bit to the right. Is that my right or your right? That would be my right. So I have to look to see where she's pointing, and then I have to try and lift that up and slide a book that I don't really care about in underneath it. Now, I'm telling you, it takes me a whole evening just to put the tree up. And then we've got to tear it down the day after Christmas. Because when Christmas is over, it's over, people. You want to know what irritates my wife? What irritates my wife is for her to see during January people still turning their Christmas lights on. She makes this comment every time she sees that. It's over, people. Now, she'll give you a little bit of grace. You can wait till January the 1st, and that's okay. But after January the 1st, it's over. But we don't even wait till January the 1st. The day after Christmas, it takes almost a full day to to take everything down, put them in the right tubs and containers, mark those containers, and get them back into the attic, and that's with my girls and now my son-in-law helping. It's wonderful that I have a son-in-law now. Because used to, it was hard to have the right heart and the right attitude. But anyways, here's what I want you to understand. If it was up to me, I'd do things totally different. What I want and what she wants are two totally different things. Now, let me go a little bit further so you can understand. Once I get the tree up, my part's over. I don't have to do any more decorating. Lisa does all of the decorating on the tree. She does all the decorating of the house. It takes her a minimum of 16 hours just to decorate the tree. Because Lisa wants the type of tree that looks like it could go in Dillard's or Macy's. It has to look like it was professionally decorated. And the great thing about it is, she found out from the very beginning that I don't have the touch. Thank God. And because I don't have the touch, once the tree is up, all the lights are working, it is no longer my job. So it actually takes her 5 to 6 evenings, working 3 to 4 hours an evening, or 2 full Saturdays and part of a Sunday just to do the tree, and then she still has to decorate the house. So my part, being honest with you, is nothing compared to Lisa's part. But from Lisa's perspective and my daughter's perspective, part of what makes Christmas so special is the decorations. So Lisa's agenda, what she wants is to decorate the whole house. What she wants is this big, beautiful Christmas tree, 12 foot tall, that looks like it's been decorated by professionals. And she wants the house to be decorated in such a way that it reflects the Christmas spirit. That's what she wants. That's what my daughters want. My daughters squeal every time they walk into the house and they take a look at this Christmas tree. Literally, I hear, "Ee!" and I can't even do it. But it automatically puts them into the Christmas spirit. And Lisa gets a lot of enjoyment and fulfillment out of making our daughters happy. Now, let's talk about my agenda. What I want. What I want is not to have to spend a couple of hours hauling down all of the decorations, especially from the attic. The next house I build will have a 3-car garage and an outbuilding, and all of my Christmas decorations are going to go in the third part of the garage. No more attic for me. And what I want is to throw up a 4-foot Christmas tree in about 5 minutes, and then we call it Christmas. Now, why do I want that? Let's be honest. Let's be objective. I'm not going to get defensive. Why do I want that? I want that because I'm lazy and selfish. So if I'm not defensive and I'm objective and I compare my agenda with Lisa's agenda, who should give in? The one who wants to make other people happy or the one who wants to make himself happy? It's a no-brainer, right? So even though I don't like doing it, I do it, and I do it with a smile on my face and with the right attitude. Why? Because what my baby wants, my baby gets. Yeah, that's my new line from that movie. And I make sure what my baby wants, my baby gets with the smile on my face and the right attitude. Because if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. Now, let me explain why I brought this up. Just so I could get a few laughs? No. You see, sometimes when you're really honest about your agenda, you realize that your agenda is selfish and petty. And that tells you that you really need to set aside your agenda and do what your spouse wants. And you need to do it with a smile, and you need to do it with the right attitude. So if you're taking notes, I want you to write this principle down. It's very important, and it's biblical. Here you go. If your agenda is selfish or sinful, it needs to be set aside. I'll talk about sinful in just a second. Let me say it again. If your agenda is selfish or sinful, it needs to be set aside. Now, what is your agenda? What you want. If what you want is selfish or sinful, you need to set it aside. Now, why do I say that? Because that's what the Bible tells us to do. Turn with me, if you would, to the book of Hebrews, the 12th chapter, verse number 1. Notice what it says. Wherefore, Seeing we also are compassed about with so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside. You know how else that could be translated? Set aside. What's step number 2? Set aside our own agenda. Now notice what it says. Wherefore, let us lay aside every weight and sin, there's really not a definite article there, and sin which so doth easily beset us, and let us run with patience the race that is set before us. Now I want you to notice what it says. It says that if what we want is sinful, then we need to set it aside. If it's selfish, we need to set it aside. It's kind of sad, but I've seen people who were supposedly good Christians lose their marriage because what they wanted was either selfish or sinful. I've heard just about everything. About 5 years ago, I had a couple who no longer attends our church. In fact, they don't even live in this area. But they came to me, getting ready to have get a divorce, and it really blew me away because I thought that this couple was very, very happy. And so I got to talking with them, trying to encourage them to go see a marriage counselor before they went to a lawyer. And as I was talking to them, I realized where it started going wrong and where they started getting into some really serious stuff. The man wanted to spice up their sex life, so he wanted to bring pornography into the marriage. Let me just tell you this. If your agenda is sinful, it's to be set aside. If you're the spouse of someone whose agenda is selfish, you have a right to say, no, I am not going to give in to that. Because from the Bible's perspective, if we're going to finish the race the way that God wants us to finish that race, we have to set aside every sin that's holding us back. And when you allow what your spouse wants that's sinful, then you're just as guilty as them. Now, I do realize that every once in a while people are not objective and they go, well, what he wants is sinful. Now, wait a minute. Wanting to come home from work, sit down, relax, and unwind is not sinful. It's just sinful because you don't want that. Does that make sense? So the reason I shared what Lisa and I were talking about, really, I'll be honest with you, wanting to have really simple decorations because it's less work for me, it's not sinful, it's just selfish. There's a difference between selfish and sinful. Now, sometimes that selfishness can get into sin, but we need to understand whether it's selfish or sinful. If it's selfish or sinful, we need to lay it aside. We need to set it aside. And when you begin to do that, you're going to have a great marriage. Now, next week, please don't miss, because next week I'm going to share, I believe, information you've never heard of before. I'm going to share a chart with you, and this chart is actually divided into 4 different quadrants. And you're going to find out whether or not you're good at empathizing with your spouse. And if you're not good at empathizing with your spouse, you're going to find out why you're not and what you need to do to improve. And then we're going to talk about something called emotional intelligence. You're going to find out why some people who are extremely intelligent are not successful in life. Some of the most intelligent people in the world can't stay in a marriage, can't succeed at work. But the reason they can't succeed is because they don't have what is called emotional intelligence. And some of the people who aren't as smart are very successful in their marriage, very successful at work. And the reason they are is because they have something that's called emotional intelligence. So next week, please don't miss, because I'm going to show you some things that can truly improve your marriage more than anything else.